Talk about an untenable state of affairs, my friends. We're in a lot of trouble. Hence, the makeshift fallout shelter. Get a load of this. Russian special services claimed to have evidence that Kiev was behind the drone attack on the Kremlin. But beyond that, that Washington, D.C., in fact, concocted and executed this operation. Do you realize the level of seriousness of this? If there ever was a declaration of war, it's killing the other guy's leader. Okay? So think about this. This is coming from the presidential spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, not some run-of-the-mill propagandist pundit in Russian state media. This is the mouthpiece for Vladimir Putin. What he says, Putin thinks. So Putin, as we are led to believe, thinks that the United States just tried to assassinate him. The leader of the country with the most nuclear weapons in the world believes that the United States, the other country with a lot of nuclear weapons, just attempted to assassinate him in the seat of power, in the creme de la Kremlin, okay, in the castle keep of the Russian Federation, the most fortified place in Russia, or one of. He believes that the United States just tried to assassinate him. Now, the United States and Kiev both vehemently deny any involvement in this incident. In fact, they claim to denounce. They don't condone this sort of behavior, according to them. They don't have the ammo for it, according to Zelensky. Somebody's lying, or somebody's trying to start some stuff. Now, he goes on to say the following, and this is quite telling, because again, remember what just happened last week. And we'll get into that in a second. But here's what he says. He said he pointed out that decisions concerning Ukrainian attacks on Russian territory are not made in Kiev, but made in Washington. Even the targets are determined in the United States, and not every time does Kiev have the right to choose the means in which these operations are conducted. So you understand that only a tiny fraction of such data is disclosed. But it is very important to ensure that Washington understand that we know this to be the case, and to be aware of how dangerous such direct involvement in the conflict is. This is insane. Now, both sides have merit to their arguments. The Americans are saying that the Russians are hyping this up, and I'm going to provide the reasons that might substantiate that claim. That the Russians are hyping this up in order to spur mobilization in the country, in order to bolster support for the conflict, intensify their attacks on Kiev, maybe even drop a nuke or two. That's what they're claiming. Now, I don't really buy that so much, because I don't think Russia needs to do that to execute those plans. I think they could intensify the attacks in Kiev right now, and there'd probably be a lot of people in Russia who would be more than happy to support that. Now, maybe in terms of mobilization, would an attack on the Kremlin scare some people who are very patriotic? Maybe it will increase patriotism a little bit and encourage more people to join into the war effort. The optics of it doesn't look good. The United States is claiming that the embarrassment that the Kremlin has suffered in seeing these drones make it past their air defense, if that's exactly what happened, is outweighed by the potential benefits of, giving them a license to intensify their attacks and whatnot, which they haven't really done yet. Yeah, they went on a big bombing campaign last night, which was the biggest since the beginning of the year, but nothing that I think would even get media attention anyways, okay, at least at this point in the game. So, it defies common sense to really believe that argument, to be brutally honest. Now, to the Russians' defense, just 1 week ago, there was a drone carrying a similar amount of C4 that was brought down in a place right around where Putin was supposed to be at that point in time. So the question is, if they were trying to chalk this up as a false flag, why didn't they do it then? Okay, because clearly they would have been in control. We know that Ukraine has been doing these drone attacks inside Russian territory. I mean, it's common knowledge that this has been done now. Of course, they're now going to say, well, we don't know, we can't prove that that's the case. But of course, I mean, every day there's a drone attack inside Russia now. So if it was the case that the Russians needed a false flag op, why didn't they pounce on that last week? Why this one? Why are they making a big deal about this one? Now, to the Americans' defense, I will say that framing this as an assassination attempt is a stretch. The Kremlin is a 61-acre facility, one of the most fortified facilities in the world. There's multiple buildings, like 20, 50 buildings, I don't even know how many. It's surrounded by a 21-foot thick wall, okay, because the Kremlin means castle in Russian, I believe. There's many Kremlins throughout Russia. In fact, the Kremlin, the creme de la Kremlin, the one we're talking about, is the biggest, most substantial one. It's meant to be the castle keep of the Russian Federation. It is the most heavily guarded, heavily fortified place in Russia, aside some of their deep underground military bases that they have in the mountains. But the idea that this had any hope in hell of succeeding as an assassination attempt is very minimal. But that depends on the intelligence, okay? If they had really good intelligence and they really knew where Putin was going to be down to the minute, there is a chance, there's a puncher's chance in hell that this could have succeeded. But realistically, the idea that they would have been successful in such a way is very, very minimal. If you're going to get to Putin, you got to almost do it. You got to get somebody close to him to turn on him, I think, at this point, or someone to poison him or something like that. So I don't think they're going to do it this way. And that's where you could say, okay, maybe the Russians are playing this up a little bit, right? Maybe this was something which was done by the Ukrainians, and maybe not even without the knowledge of Washington. But the idea that they really thought they would be able to assassinate Putin is kind of a stretch. But you never know, because the tentacles run deep in both directions between the Ukrainians and the Russians in terms of their human spy on the ground capabilities. So it's very hard to say. Now, if this was something which came from the executive level in Washington, we're talking about Sleepy Joe, okay? You could have a situation, and Seymour Hersh talked about situations in which a leader can give tacit approval to their covert special ops guys to, through many degrees of separation, have an operation like this conducted and have it'd be impossible to ever trace it back. Because, a guy pays a guy who pays a guy who pays a guy who pays a guy. And it's so far removed, there's so much plausible deniability that you could hook the leader, Biden, up to a lie detector, and he could pass the lie detector test. Even John Kirby in the press conference today seemed surprisingly confident and genuine in his responses that he believes that Washington had no knowledge of this. And I don't actually disagree with that. But that doesn't mean there's not forces within the black budget somewhere, or special ops, or something that's been outsourced to some private contractor or a hitman, whatever, okay, that is doing this. Partisans within Russia, perhaps. We'd be fools to think that there is no attempt to try to subvert Russia from the inside out. So it's very possible that that is the case. But even if it was defectors within Russia, the Russians are still going to view it as being orchestrated by Washington because of those factors, okay? Because there is those links. As long as those links might be, they all can go back to Washington, D.C. This puts us in a defective state of war with the Russians regardless. And what this means is that it's very, the odds of this being resolved in a peaceful way after you attempt to assassinate a president, even if the president of that country only believes that you tried to assassinate them, is slim to none, I think, at this point. I don't see how this situation was never going to be reconciled even without this, because the Russians can't trust the Americans because we violated the Minsk agreement and all this stuff. And we are openly brazen about why we did that, to buy time to build up forces. So that alone, I mean, there's been so many red lines crossed already that have guaranteed that this ends in catastrophic bloodshed. But now this sealed the deal. I mean, this is it. This is the final nail in the coffin. It doesn't get worse than this. Vladimir Putin believes that Washington just tried to assassinate him. 90% of people have no idea how substantial this is, how important this is. I mean, this is absolutely insane. So you have today the leader of the former head of Roscosmos, which is the Russian space agency, and they do a lot of stuff with the ICBMs and the nuclear missiles, Dmitry Rogozin. He said that Moscow is facing defeat in its war with Kiev. This is a guy who's in Russia now. Okay, he's in Russia, and in fact, he's on the front line in some shots. He's on the ground fighting, or, in military BDUs with a gun in hand, on the side of the Russians, of course. So this is a guy on the front, a politician who is saying that Moscow is facing defeat in the war with Kiev unless the dictator unleashes his atomic weapons. And he said this on video. It must be said that under our doctrine, we have every right to use tactical nuclear weapons, said Rogozin, who is dressed in military fatigues with a customized AK-47 assault rifle on his shoulder. That is precisely what they're there for, this Great Equalizer. Now, Prigozhin, the Wagner head, said that we should not be threatening nuclear weapons in response to toy drones hitting the Kremlin because it makes us look like clowns. So there's a bit of a disconnect there, a difference of opinion, if you will. But there are many Russian commanders who have in fact said the same thing, that we need to use nuclear weapons. So understand that I hate to say it, but the judgment day of all of this is coming. And it's probably not the best choice of words, because I know there's a lot of eschatological Christians out there who watch the channel. But it's coming down to the point where there's going to be the flashpoint of all of this. It's likely going to be in and around the counteroffensive where things get hot, and that's when we're going to know. And according to both sides, if they lose, then it's World War III, meaning that the Americans believe if the Ukrainians lose, then World War III is guaranteed. Contradictingly, the Russians believe that if they lose, it's World War III, or that they're going to have to use nuclear weapons because their existence is under threat. And this is why I'm in the makeshift fallout shelter today. I'm actually not in a makeshift fallout shelter, but we're going to be talking this weekend about 3 pillars of preparedness. It's going to be a power punch of actionable content this weekend, guys, because it's getting down to crunch time. Regenerative food supply, aka how to get your garden in the ground, maximize yield in a small plot of land year after year. It's very important that you understand the core principles of planting year after year. And we got the soulless soil scientists in for that. We're going to be talking about home fortifications. Okay, hint, hint, what's behind me here. We're also going to be talking about medicine. There is a revolutionary new service that we are going to announce on Sunday that is going to change the game. It's going to change the game for preppers. So you guys are in for a treat. We're going all out this weekend because the time to prepare is now. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Canadian Prepper out.